Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with All Things Barbecue, and this is Turducken. So for those of you who aren't familiar with turducken, it's essentially a deboned turkey stuffed with a deboned duck, stuffed with a deboned chicken, with layers of savory sausage stuffing in this case, all stuffed in between. It's equal parts gnarly, beautiful, and delicious. It is quite a process, so let's dive right into the deboning. So an important thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is that you get the right sized birds. We have a very small chicken here, it's about 4 pounds. Our duck is around 6 pounds. And this turkey's about 15 pounds, so these should fit nicely inside one another. I'm gonna start with the smallest bird and work my way up to the biggest one. And I recommend you do it this way because this gets you some practice on the deboning. By the time you get to that turkey, you should have it down and you won't worry about piercing the skin, which is really important. We don't wanna cut through the skin because we want it all to hold together. So we're gonna start with this thing, breast side down, and we're gonna find the backbone and cut right along the side of it. You're gonna wanna have a really nice, sharp boning knife for this. All right, so the first obstacle you're gonna come to is this joint where the wing is. So we gotta get through that joint. All right, pretty easy to separate. And then what we're gonna do is follow the rib cage down, trying not to take any of the breast meat with it. When we get down here, the next obstacle is we have this joint right here where the thigh bone meets the rest of the carcass, and we got to get through there as well. So there you see the bone. You just want to go right in between. Pretty easy. So we're working around the back side of the breast right now until we get to the breastbone. And we're gonna work our way right up that breastbone and then stop and start over from the back side again. All right, so again, right along the side of the backbone, around and through that knuckle right there. Let's find that thigh bone again. Right there's the joint. Slice right through it. And work your way up to the rib cage. All right, so as we approach the skin, we're being really careful not to go too far. Just working our way up that breastbone. Got a wishbone that's in the way right here. We're gonna get rid of that. And then essentially this gets to the point where you can just about pull it off. So we've already separated that. All right, so you're not gonna see any of this. This is the beautiful thing in the end product. If you tear this up a little bit, nobody's gonna know. And you can come in here at this point and make sure that you've got all that cartilage out of there. So move your hands around the meat, make sure you feel anything that you wouldn't want to chew on, you're gonna get rid of, and there's little bits of cartilage that can be left behind. As you can see, we did a really nice job on this one, didn't pierce the skin. That carcass, the rib cage is gone from the carcass. So what we need to do now is get rid of these bones down here in the hindquarters as well as up here in the wings. And I'm actually not even going to use these flats from the wings. We're just going to get rid of those. Actually, that's probably going to be lunch. Now, to remove this wing bone, I'm going to come from the inside and cut down around the knuckle, down to the bone. So now we're just working down the bone, scraping that down. And when you get to the bottom here, you can essentially just pull this thing out. One quick cut, and that bone is gone. All right, and do the same thing to the other side. All right, now we're gonna work down on the thigh bone. Gonna kind of do the same thing here, work around this bone. And I don't actually need a full tunnel for this part, so I can scrape right along the bone. And this will just sort of be flayed open. Now when we get down here to the joint, we're gonna find that joint and cut through it. All right, so there the thigh is boned out. And we're gonna treat this drum just like we did the drumette on the wing. Cut down around the knuckle and start scraping. This will actually move pretty easy once you get started. Again, same process, we're gonna pull that out. And I'm just gonna snip it off right there. So now what we have is this whole thigh area that we can actually fill with stuffing. Let's do the same thing to the other side. All right, scrape down to the joint, pop that joint, and then put the knife through it. Treat this just like the drumette, cut around the knuckle, scrape down, and give that a pull. And that is our fully deboned chicken. Let's move on to the duck. All right, duck is going to work exactly the same. It's a slightly different sized animal, different shaped animal, but the process is the same. Start out right along the backbone. Gotta find that wing joint. This bone is just in the way. And then we'll find the thigh joint. And slowly peel that meat away from the carcass. Working around the rib cage. And then we find the breastbone. All right, see that white right there? That's skin, so we're gonna be really careful not to make any deeper cuts than that. As I mentioned before, if we screw this part up, not a big deal, but it is practice for the turkey. All right, so we get to the breastbone, then we flip it back over and start on the other side again. All right, so we made it through that wing joint there. Let's go down and find the thigh joint. And there's the separation. Working our way around the rib cage. All right, and we've made it back to the breastbone. So you can see it laid out here. All that's left to do is to get through this final layer where the skin is in the front. And we're being careful not to cut through the skin. There we go. So it comes off the breastbone clean. And we didn't cut through the skin, all right. So again, I'm gonna clean this up, feel for any hard stuff, a little bit of breastbone cartilage left behind here, that kind of thing. All right, so just like with the chicken, I'm gonna take the flats of the wings off. And you can throw those into your stock with the rest of the stuff if you want, or have a little chicken wing lunch. Duck wing lunch, I guess, in this case. And then let's get the bones out of the wings. Same process as the chicken. Working around that knuckle. Do a little bit of scraping. And then pull it right out. Let's get that other wing bone out of there. All right, wing bones removed. Let's move down to the thighs. Just like the chicken, kind of cut around to release some of those muscles down the bone. Cut through to release the bone. And then for the leg bone, same thing, we're just going to cut around that knuckle. And start scraping. Let gravity do some of that work until this thing's about ready to pop out. And we'll take the end off. Now we've got us another great little pocket to stuff some stuffing into. Let's do the same thing to the other side. One more quick thing to note about duck. These domestic ducks, their skin is especially fatty, which is great if you're rendering it in a pan or cooking it in a skillet. But for what we're doing, it's just gonna be kind of chewy if we leave that extra stuff in there. So we're gonna get rid of any extra skin. So why not remove the skin altogether if it's just kind of fatty? Well, if we do that, then these parts are just gonna float wherever they want inside of this roast, which is essentially what it is, kind of a roulade roast thing in the end. So for us to get the best visual of this when it's done, layer upon layer of meat and stuffing, we want it to all hold together, and that's what the skin does, is it holds all those pieces in place. All right, that's enough practice. It's time for the main event. Let's get into deboning this turkey. I'm gonna start this thing off exactly like we did the other two, cutting alongside this backbone. Where we will run into our first obstacle here, the wing. But this is gonna work just like the chicken and just like the duck, just on a larger scale. There's our joint, right through it. And the beautiful thing is you get better every time you do this. So work down along the rib cage until we find the thigh bone. There's that joint. Work our way back to that knuckle right there. And I'm going to cheat and come from the back side a little bit here. We can pop through there. Promise that's the hardest cut you're going to have to make. All right, so back to working along the rib cage to where the breastbone, where the breastplate is. And once we've made it to that plate, we're gonna go slow, go easy so we don't go through the skin. And let's flip around and do the other side. All right, so there's that joint right there. We just go right through the middle of that. We're gonna cheat by working from the back a little bit. And this is the second toughest cut you'll have to make. There it is. Free up that thigh meat, and again, this doesn't have to be beautiful in here because it's going to be on the inside. And true beauty comes from the inside. Your heart. We're getting close, so I'm going slow. Just not quite there yet. There we go. And there we have it. Skin intact. That's a win. Now the worst of the knife work is over, but we have just a little bit more to do. We're gonna skip deboning the wings because we want this bird to have the appearance of a turkey in the end. So the only bones we still need to remove are the thigh bones. We're leaving the leg bones intact and we're leaving the wings intact. All right, gonna do this just like we did everything else. And we're gonna work our way all the way down to that joint. And simply leave the leg bone intact with the thigh bone coming out. So what this does is it gives us another little pocket of space to put some stuffing in, but it also gives us some structure in this leg for the finished product. And throughout this process, you want to be on the lookout for little bits like that you wouldn't want to bite into later on. I'm just going to get rid of some of this excess cartilage from the thigh bone. All right, last bone, we're on the home stretch. As soon as we get this thigh bone out of here, move on to assembling our turducken. Next, we're going to move on to the seasoning and then assembly. We're going to start this by injecting the breasts of the turkey, and we're only injecting the breasts of the turkey. And the reason for that is that white meat tends to dry out before the dark meat, and it's going to be on the outside of the roast, so it's already going to be at a higher temperature when it finishes than the stuff on the center. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that breast retains as much moisture and flavor as possible. I'm going to start off with a half cup of cold water, and I'm adding to it our Sweetwater Spice turkey bath. This is the classic holiday, our go-to turkey injection or brine. Injection in this case. It's got a lot of solid material in it though, so we're gonna strain it off so that we can inject it. And we're just gonna go with 2 parts water to 1 part concentration here. That'll give us enough flavor and enough salt and acid to really do the job. If we move these tenders out of the way, expose a little bit more of the breast here. And then we can get a little bit in the tender itself as well. Just gonna pump this full of this holiday goodness. That rosemary flavor is really big. I love the apple juice in there. All right, we don't need all of that moisture sitting on the surface, so we'll just take some of that up. And then we might as well put that stuff that we strained off there, some of those solids on here. There'll be some really good flavor in there. And then we can hit this thing with some rub. We're gonna hit this with the Cattleman's Grill Ranchero, same stuff we used on our spatchcock turkey this year. So winning flavor combination right here. Oh, I can already smell the garlic coming out of that. My mouth's watering, and we've got like a whole night and then another 6 hours to wait before we can taste this stuff. All right, so anywhere where we see exposed meat, we're gonna hit that with the seasoning. And then we can get on here with our first layer of stuffing. This stuffing we're using today is our savory sausage stuffing. You can find the recipe, the procedure, in the video that we released just a couple of weeks ago for the smoke roasted spatchcock turkey, and we'll put a link in the description below. All right, time to start building some layers here. We're gonna go down where that breastbone was, put some stuffing down in there. We also wanna open up the tenders and get some underneath there. And then we're gonna enclose this with the tender. And we've got the meat touching meat right here, right? So when we slice into this, we get this meat encased stuffing. It's gonna look awesome. Just a thin layer on top of the breast. And then down in that thigh cavity. You're going to use up about half of your stuffing on this first layer because as we go, these layers are going to get thinner and smaller as the birds get thinner and smaller. Now we want to lay the duck out, and before I get it in place, I'm just going to put a little bit of seasoning on that skin side. And then we're just gonna mimic the exact same position of the turkey. So breasts on breasts, thighs on thighs. No injection this time around, so we'll go straight in to seasoning. And then the stuffing. Kind of work that into those thigh cavities on this one as well. And we're ready for chicken. Once again, I am going to season the skin side. And then we'll lay this in place. So as this one folds up as the final one, you'll essentially get this nice bit of stuffing right in the middle, and the breast will come to meet at the top. A little more stuffing down in the thighs. And that is it. Time to put this thing together. There's a number of ways you can bring this bird together at this point. One would be butcher's twine, which is a really nice way to go. Another would be skewers. We're going to use a combination of a couple different methods. We're going to start by tying off in one spot, which if you're doing this alone makes it easier to then work from there and get the back sewed together. And I'm actually going to use some firewire skewers, so some flexible skewers to try and pull this thing together. This is the big sewing needle we're going to use, and you can just pick this up at the craft store. All right, let's get this started by bringing the hind end together. I'm going to go through skin and muscle so this doesn't tear right out. And this one is just going to be a single knot to get us started. All right, so we've got this end pulled together. I'm going to flip around now and come in with my firewire from the other side. All right, so this pulls together pretty easy, and now we can start working our way down to the other end. All right, so that back is 100% sewn up now. And the best way to tie this off is just to slide this back through. There we go. And that should allow everything to stay in place. Now, the firewire makes really quick work of that back, but we still have 2 cavities we have to sew up, and we're going to be using butcher's twine for that. I'm going to start in the middle here, and unfortunately this turkey didn't leave us with a lot of extra skin, so we're going to do a little extra work to make sure that this all comes together, but I think it's going to be just fine. So let's pull this all the way through and tie off. There's no wrong way to do this, guys. You can do this however you like, whatever you're most comfortable with. Just going to thread my way back to center and then go up the other side. All right, and this is going to be our final knot here. All right, now it's for the neck end cavity, and we will have this thing sewn up. All right, so this one's going to be a lot easier because we have all this excess skin and less distance to go. I have to go ahead and get rid of some of this excess skin here, so we're not going to need that. There's just one last thing to do today, and that's to truss this bird up so that it sits nice and compact and everything cooks evenly. And you might be looking at this thing right now thinking, look at this Frankenstein bird, it's ugly. Well, once we get this thing trussed up, you're not even gonna notice. And by the time this is fully cooked, it's gonna be beautiful. Now don't judge my trussing skills. This is not my strength right here. I'm gonna start by putting the legs together, and I'm just gonna use one piece of butcher's twine to do this, and then we'll work into the rest of the bird. All right, so coming underneath the wings here, gonna pin these down. And tie this off. And then I'm gonna start working my way down the body of the bird. There we go. So they're nice and uniform. And do another loop. And we go around the legs and back to where we started. Let's tie it off here and call it good. Not bad, right? In order to maximize the crispiness of the skin, I want to let it dry out as much as possible. So now I'm gonna place this onto a cooling rack over a sheet pan and place it in the refrigerator overnight. All right, guys, we're back. Our turducken has sat all night, so the skin is dried out, which is gonna help us get it nice and crispy today. All we gotta do is get this thing seasoned and onto the grill. We'll start by seasoning the back side here. We're gonna need a little bit of binder, and you can use oil or really a number of things. What I have here is a little bit of duck fat in a can, which is perfect for the occasion. Hit this with some of the ranchero. This is gonna give great flavor to the skin, but also it just looks really nice presentation-wise. You get those flecks of pepper on there, and then as this browns up, it's gonna look great. So just a thin layer of oil and then a fairly generous amount of seasoning. We got a lot of meat underneath here, so this really isn't gonna come off too salty or over seasoned in the end. We're cooking our turducken on a Yoder Smokers YS640 pellet grill, running a 50-50 combination of pecan and cherry pellets. And we've got it still on that rack over the sheet pan, and it's on the main cooking grate. The main reason for this is because it's just too tall. It won't fit underneath a second shelf. It won't fit on top of the second shelf, so we take the second shelf out. We're running indirect heat at 350 degrees, and we've got that air underneath the turkey so the smoke can circulate, and it gives us a little bit more thermal barrier. So any of that heat that's coming off the deflector, coming off the grates, even coming off the pan, there's just a little bit of padding there. I expect this thing to take about 5 to 6 hours to cook total, so we'll be back in about 3 hours to check on the color. We're about 3.5 hours into the cook. I've been monitoring the color, and I want to give you guys a peek now. I really like the browning that's going on. We're already getting some crispiness on the skin. And I want to slow down this browning now, so I'm going to wrap it, not too tightly, but wrap it with some foil. So this will keep the air from moving right over the skin and should slow the browning process. So the internal temperature right now is sitting at about 125 degrees, and we're gonna shoot for about 160. So I'll be back to check on this in another hour or so. Well, we're sitting right at 5.5 hours now on this cook, and the center of this roast turducken is now about 160 to 165, which is perfect. You know, it's fully cooked. So I want to show this to you guys, and we're going to pull it off and let it rest for just about 20 minutes before we slice into it. Beautiful color all the way around, nice brown color, crispy skin, it's fully rendered. This thing is perfectly cooked and ready to come off. It's been a long process, but we're finally coming to the end, so let's free this bird, get rid of that trussing, and slice it open. The firewire just falls right out of there at this point, but it's done its job. It's held this thing together. Let's go ahead and cut right into the middle of it so we can get that beautiful shot of what this looks like, layer between layer. Still plenty warm after half an hour. Look at that, beautiful. You got your turkey breasts, turkey tenders, there's your duck, and of course the chicken in the center. Now for the turkey leg lovers in your life, those come right off. Someone can have a turkey leg to themselves with a touch of stuffing on it. Check out this skin though. I mean, crispy, brown, and beautiful. That's one massive slice of turducken. And look how juicy it is in the center. It's still got juice sitting on top of that. That's how we know it's just perfectly cooked. I'm gonna get in here and get a bite with some of the turkey, some of the stuffing, and a little bit of skin. So injecting that breast on the outside really helped it to stay nice and moist. Plenty of juice in it still. And the flavor's fantastic. That between the savory stuffing and that holiday classic brine injection, it's everything you want out of a turkey flavor profile, right? Thanksgiving, holidays in general. This would be great at Christmas time. This definitely shouldn't be reserved just for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, any of those big holidays, this is one of those dishes that elevates you to barbecue legend. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please smash that subscribe button. And just a heads up, a good deal of the products used in this video, I mean everything from the cutting boards to the Wusthof knives, the seasonings, the injection, even the grill, you can find over at atbbq.com. If you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, please let me know in the comment section down below. And hey, let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to thesauce.atbbq.com. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.